You are listening to the audiobook edition of Glimpses of World History, written by Jawaharlal Nehru and first published in 1934. This audio presentation has been created by Giribala Joshi using advanced text-to-speech technology.
Now let's begin with the foreword. Glimpses of World History was written in different prisons in India during the 3 years between October 1930 and August 1933. The author was serving sentences of imprisonment inflicted on him for his part in the struggle for Indian freedom and his opposition to British domination of his country. Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru took advantage of his enforced rest, his leisure and detachment, as he calls it, to write on world history. He wrote it in the form of letters to his young daughter, whose education he had little opportunity of supervising owing to his periodic absences in prison. These letters were gathered together when Pandit Nehru had a brief respite, prior to his last period of 2 years in jail after being arrested once again on the February 12, 1934 and sentenced for sedition. His sister, the Honorable Vijayalakshmi Pandit, now Minister for Local Self-Government and Public Health in the United Provinces of Agra and Awadh, arranged for their publication in book form as Glimpses of World History in 1934. An apt title. It says very much what the book is. The first Indian edition has been sold out and the book has been out of print for some time. However, it has not circulated much outside India. Pandit Nehru resumed his active life in public affairs after his release in 1936. The period since then has been one full of activity and responsibility and, unfortunately, of domestic bereavement. In India, events have developed with speed and intensity. Europe and the world have witnessed cataclysms and vast changes. The author has been both a spectator and participant in these great developments full of meaning for the future of civilization, for Pandit Nehru is one of those rare personalities in public life who combines intense activity with vision and detachment. During his European travels he saw some of the recent events of the Western world at first hand. He has been in intimate contact with the struggles in China and Spain. The present volume is in many respects a new book. It has been revised, to a considerable extent rewritten, and brought up to date to the end of 1938 by the author himself. Though this work has been done out of prison, it lacks none of the objectivity of the original work. It is enriched by greater experience and knowledge. Glimpses of World History is no mere narrative of events, valuable as the work is in this respect, but also a reflection of the author's personality. His outstanding intellect and sensitive mind make this history book a work unique in character. It retains the letter form written for a growing child. It has simplicity and directness, but the treatment is never superficial. There are no oversimplifications of fact or interpretation. J.F. Horrobin has illustrated Glimpses of World History with 50 of his inimitable maps. They are a distinctive feature of the present work, as is the very full index of 22 pages. The publishers have decided to bring out this book of 1,016 pages at a very low price, thus enabling it to reach a large circle of readers the world over. End of foreword. Preface to original edition. I do not know when or where these letters will be published, or whether they will be published at all, for India is a strange land today and it is difficult to prophesy. But I am writing these lines while I have the chance to do so, before events forestall me. An apology and an explanation are needed for this historical series of letters. Those readers who take the trouble to go through them will perhaps find the apology and the explanation. In particular, I would refer the reader to the last letter, and perhaps it would be as well, in this topsy-turvy world, to begin at the end. The letters have grown. There was little of planning about them, and I never thought that they would grow to these dimensions. Nearly 6 years ago, when my daughter was 10 years old, I wrote a number of letters to her containing a brief and simple account of the early days of the world. These early letters were subsequently published in book form and they had a generous reception. The idea of continuing them hovered in my mind, but a busy life full of political activity prevented it from taking shape. Prison gave me the chance I needed, and I seized it. Prison life has its advantages. It brings both leisure and a measure of detachment. But the disadvantages are obvious. There are no libraries or reference books at the command of the prisoner, and, under these conditions, to write on any subject, and especially history, is a foolhardy undertaking. A number of books came to me, but they could not be kept. They came and went. 12 years ago, however, when, in common with large numbers of my countrymen and countrywomen, I started my pilgrimages to prison, I developed the habit of making notes of the books I read. My notebooks grew in number and they came to my rescue when I started writing. Other books of course helped me greatly, among them inevitably, H.G. Wells's Outline of History. But the lack of good reference books was very real, and because of this the narrative had often to be slurred over, or particular periods skipped. The letters are personal and there are many intimate touches in them which were meant for my daughter alone. I do not know what to do about them, for it is not easy to take them out without considerable effort. I am therefore leaving them untouched. Physical inactivity leads to introspection and varying moods. I am afraid these changing moods are very apparent in the course of these letters, and the method of treatment is not the objective one of a historian. I do not claim to be a historian. There is an unfortunate mixture of elementary writing for the young and a discussion at times of the ideas of grown-ups. There are numerous repetitions. Indeed, of the faults that these letters contain there is no end. They are superficial sketches joined together by a thin thread. I have borrowed my facts and ideas from odd books, and many errors may have crept in. It was my intention to have these letters revised by a competent historian, but during my brief period out of prison I have not had the time to make any such arrangement. In the course of these letters I have often expressed my opinions rather aggressively. I hold to those opinions, but even as I was writing the letters my outlook on history changed gradually. Today if I had to rewrite them, I would write differently or with a different emphasis. But I cannot tear up what I have written and start afresh. Jawaharlal Nehru. End of the preface to the original edition of Glimpses of World History. A birthday letter. For Indira Priyadarshini on her 13th birthday. Central Prison, Naini. October 26, 1930. Footnote: Indira's birthday takes place, according to the Gregorian calendar, on November 19th. It was observed, however, on October 26, according to the Samvat era. End of footnote. On your birthday you have been in the habit of receiving presents and good wishes. Good wishes you will still have in full measure, but what present can I send you from Naini prison? My presents cannot be very material or solid. They can only be of the air and of the mind and spirit, such as a good fairy might have bestowed on you, things that even the high walls of prison cannot stop. You know, sweetheart, how I dislike sermonizing and doling out good advice. When I am tempted to do this I always think of the story of a very wise man I once read. Perhaps one day you will yourself read the book which contains this story. 1300 years ago there came a great traveler from China to India in search of wisdom and knowledge. His name was Wen Sang. And over the deserts and mountains of the north he came, braving many dangers, facing and overcoming many obstacles, so great was his thirst for knowledge. And he spent many years in India learning himself and teaching others, especially at the great University of Nalanda, which existed then near the city that used to be called Patliputra and is now known as Patna. Wen Sang became very learned himself, and he was given the title of Master of the Law of the Buddha, and he journeyed all over India and saw and studied the people that lived in this great country in those far-off days. Later he wrote a book of his travels, and it is this book which contains the story that comes to my mind. It is about a man from South India who came to Karnasavarna, which was a city somewhere near modern Bhagalpur in Bihar, and this man, it is written, wore round his waist copper plates, and on his head he carried a lighted torch. Staff in hand, with proud bearing and lofty steps, he wandered about in this strange attire. And when anyone asked him the reason for his curious get-up, he told him that his wisdom was so great that he was afraid his belly would burst if he did not wear copper plates round it, and because he was moved with pity for the ignorant people round about him, who lived in darkness, he carried the light on his head. Well, I am quite sure that there is no danger of my ever bursting with too much wisdom, and so there is no need for me to wear copper plates or armor. And in any event, I hope that my wisdom, such of it as I possess, does not live in my belly. Wherever it may reside, there is plenty of room still for more of it, and there is no chance of there being no room left. If I am so limited in wisdom, how can I pose as a wise man and distribute good advice to others? And so I have always thought that the best way to find out what is right and what is not right, what should be done and what should not be done, is not by giving a sermon, but by talking and discussing, and out of discussion sometimes a little bit of the truth comes out. I have liked my talks with you and we have discussed many things, but the world is wide and beyond our world lie other wonderful and mysterious worlds, so none of us need ever be bored or imagine. Like the very foolish and conceited person whose story when sang has told us. That we have learned everything worth learning and become very wise. And perhaps it is as well that we do not become very wise, for the very wise, if any such there are, must sometimes feel rather sad that there is nothing more to learn. They must miss the joy of discovery and of learning new things. The great adventure that all of us who care to may have. I must not therefore sermonize. But what am I to do, then? A letter can hardly take the place of a talk, at best it is a one-sided affair. So, if I say anything that sounds like good advice, do not take it as if it were a bad pill to swallow. Imagine that I have made a suggestion to you for you to think over, as if we really were having a talk. In history we read of great periods in the life of nations, of great men and women and great deeds performed, and sometimes in our dreams and reveries we imagine ourselves back in those times and doing brave deeds like the heroes and heroines of old. Do you remember how fascinated you were when you first read the story of Joan of Arc, and how your ambition was to be something like her? Ordinary men and women are not usually heroic. They think of their daily bread and butter, of their children, of their household worries and the like. But a time comes when a whole people become full of faith for a great cause, and then even simple, ordinary men and women become heroes, and history becomes stirring and epic-making. Great leaders have something in them which inspires a whole people and makes them do great deeds. The year you were born in, 1917, was one of the memorable years of history when a great leader, with a heart full of love and sympathy for the poor and suffering, made his people write a noble and never-to-be-forgotten chapter of history. In the very month in which you were born, Lenin started the Great Revolution which has changed the face of Russia and Siberia. And today in India another great leader, also full of love for all who suffer and passionately eager to help them, has inspired our people to great endeavor and noble sacrifice, so that they may again be free and the starving and the poor and the oppressed may have their burdens removed from them. Bapuji lies in prison, but the magic of his message steals into the hearts of India's millions, and men and women, and even little children, come out of their little shells and become India's soldiers of freedom. In India today we are making history, and you and I are fortunate to see this happening before our eyes and to take some part ourselves in this great drama. How shall we bear ourselves in this great movement? What part shall we play in it? I cannot say what part will fall to our lot, but, whatever it may be, let us remember that we can do nothing which may bring discredit to our cause or dishonor to our people. If we are to be India's soldiers, we have India's honor in our keeping, and that honor is a sacred trust. Often we may be in doubt as to what to do. It is no easy matter to decide what is right and what is not. One little test I shall ask you to apply whenever you are in doubt. It may help you. Never do anything in secret or anything that you would wish to hide. For the desire to hide anything means that you are afraid, and fear is a bad thing and unworthy of you. Be brave, and all the rest follows. If you are brave, you will not fear and will not do anything of which you are ashamed. You know that in our great freedom movement, under Bapuji's leadership, there is no room for secrecy or hiding. We have nothing to hide. We are not afraid of what we do and what we say. We work in the sun and in the light. Even so in our private lives let us make friends with the sun and work in the light and do nothing secretly or furtively. Privacy, of course, we may have and should have, but that is a very different thing from secrecy. And if you do so, my dear, you will grow up a child of the light, unafraid and serene and unruffled, whatever may happen. I have written a very long letter to you. And yet there is so much I would like to tell you. How can a letter contain it? You are fortunate, I have said, in being a witness to this great struggle for freedom that is going on in our country. You are also very fortunate in having a very brave and wonderful little woman for your mummy, and if you are ever in doubt or in trouble you cannot have a better friend. Goodbye, little one, and may you grow up into a brave soldier in India's service. With all my love and good wishes. End of the first letter titled, A Birthday Letter, of Glimpses of World History.